What's good, people? And we are live. It's your man DL Saint. Welcome to the I Really Want to Know podcast. I see Brother Michael's already here. We've been communicating already. Shout out to you. Shout out to all y'all. And I'm excited today. This. Look at me. I'm snapping my fingers and everything. We got a good one. I got my man, 100 grand, brother from another mother. One of the dudes that boy, when I talk about been in the trenches, we've been in the trenches. You hear what I'm saying? And just like the thumbnail says, this is the most experienced human being I've ever met in my life. I've met a lot of people. So without further ado, I'm just going to bring him right on up so y'all can say hello for yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you Rook. What's good, brother?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Going real good, man. Going real good. I got to get you all the applause in
Like
there.
the applause, yeah, all the kids.
I had kids, man. They real kids. They sitting right here, man. They waiting for their parents to come pick them up. Uncle Saint love the kids. Nah, man, that's a voice. Yeah, it's a radio box. Don't send the police over here, people. I'm playing, and I don't have real kids in here.
Yeah,
So, Rook, man, thanks a lot for coming on, brother. Man, I know how
happy
busy
to
you
be
are.
on. I really appreciate you asking me on and everything. I like to support, your
Yes,
show, and so I don't know how good I'll be, but I'll give it my best shot.
you're gonna be perfect, man. I ain't gonna joke, man. This is just a conversation I want to have because all of our conversations are amazing. Just we went on a phone talking, and it's been like that forever. I know you. I know who you are. I know what you're about, but everyone out there does not. So, brother, can you just tell them, let everybody know who Rook is?
All right, well, I'm born and raised in LA. Lived here my whole life. I guess over a decade in Venice and Manhattan Beach way back in the late 70s and early 80s. So just kind of a local boy out here. I worked with Don at the Van Nuys Airport. We were there together 13 years, something like that. Then I went on to LAX and then to San Diego. Now I work at a military base in Los Alamitos at the tower there. I'm not an air traffic controller. I do the weather observations and forecasts now for the Air Force. Um, I love to travel. I have a lot of hobbies on the side. I do blacksmithing, carpentry, all sorts of stuff. I started out as an auto mechanic over 25 years ago. And I just kind of live life. I go with the flow. I like to do. I got my hands in all sorts of stuff. I'm a kind of an amateur autodidact. I like to learn about ancient history, cosmology, not cosmetology,
Probably know a
cosmology.
little bit something about that too,
Hey
though.
man, it's been funny because I've sat with people and I was like, yeah, I'm really into cosmology, and they're just kind of looking at me like, you wear makeup or like you're into that kind of stuff, but and I got to explain a little bit. But whatever interests me, I go all in and I learn as much as I can. I'm not saying, I know a lot, but you know, I, it's something that I just, I feel like I'm alive. It's a gift. I should spend every minute of every day improving my mind, my body, and my spirit. So I like work. Me. I work out. I don't go to the gym. I'm not really big on being around a lot of people. I work out at home, but I get out on trails. I like jogging on trails. I like birds. I got three hummingbird feeders at my place. I got. I'm just. It is whatever. I just like I do my own thing, as you know. So, but
I,
anyway,
I
that's kind of who I am. I know, not too exciting, but there you
It's
go.
plenty exciting, and he left stuff out, y'all. I mean, he's because Rook is one of the most humble dudes I know. Most of the guys that I know that are really killing it in life, they're all humble, right? And one of the things that Rook left out is this: his whole almost went to Division I basketball, high school star. He left all that out. You know what I
Had a
mean?
scholarship to Wake Forest. I was going to play with Rodney Rogers back in the day. Had a 38-inch vert. Uh, I'm 6'4", so that's pretty good to have.
Was
Not
killing
that
it.
I have it anymore. Not that I even tried, but I'd say maybe I'm around 3.8 inches now as an old man. But yeah, I was really into basketball. Played some football, cross country, all that stuff. That was another lifetime ago. I feel like honestly, I feel like I've lived 100 different lives. So, and each one's, different and unique. And so always trying to grow, a lot more growing to go,
A
you
lot
know?
more growing to go. And that's what I mean. Like I said, being humble and always just ready to learn. And it was funny because when I first met Rook, we were at work in the control tower. And like Rook said, like he was taking care of the weather. And it's not like he was just the weather guy, but he like really knows about atmospheric stuff, bro. Like all sorts of things. I sat down with him once. We talked about it, and I was trying to pull my head open and let my brain out to rest because I couldn't wrap my mind around everything this man was telling me just about weather. Never mind about string theory, and never mind about black holes and all that kind of stuff. Never mind about women. We were just talking about weather. So the man was on it. Um, so yeah, and now I was telling Rook like, yo, man, tell the truth, man. You were at the outfit. You know what I mean? You with the CIA, right? He was just like, what?
Yeah, I get that sometimes.
Like, get that all the time. So Jason Johnson, what's up, brother? Welcome. I see you. Brother Mike's already in here,
What's up,
been in here
Jason?
early. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Right.
And Candace M, what's going on? Love, good to see you. Absolutely hit the like button on the way in, y'all. Subscribe. Y'all know I'm just getting started, but because of y'all, we're over 350 subs, I think. So like a
Wow,
thousand on
man,
the
that's
way,
great.
y'all. Yeah, yeah, they showing me love. My Fresh and Fit fam, my Suzette Speaks fam. I'm starting to pick up people who are just finding me. Welcome to all y'all. Thanks. So we're gonna get right into it. So Rook, I've already talked to you about what's going on with what I'm trying to do here with this particular platform. And we're going to talk about a lot of things, but I wanted to start with the whole alpha male versus sigma male. And it's not even a versus thing. It's just like the distinction between alpha and sigma and like your take on that, because a lot of this is revolving around this push from men who are trying to get access to women. They're just and they're just not being seen by women. And then there's a part of the internet with Rolo Tomasi, Rich Cooper, Fresh and Fit, Better Bachelor, got Joker over there, Donovan Sharp. You can have this whole segment of the internet that are trying to RP or wake up, unplug people, men mostly, with reference to female dating strategy versus male dating strategy and what you need to do to become this. And then there's these terms because of Kevin Samuels, high value male. You got all this stuff going on. Then there's alpha and there's beta terms out there and people get mad or whatever. Bro, you broke it down to me. And that's where I really want you on the show. So I want to start there, man. Can you tell me your take on alpha, sigma, beta, the dating with reference to the dating world from your point of view?
So, with the alpha and beta and all that stuff, I actually had to, when you were talking to me about this, I think it was about a month ago. I honestly didn't really know it was something that I've always heard alpha and beta male and all these things, but I never really, honestly, I never really cared. Uh, but I knew, this is definitely something I see a lot. I see it on the internet. I see it on social media all the time. And from my perspective, what I've seen over the years, I'm a kid from the '70s, so I've seen society change here in the U.S. quite a bit. Uh, but there's a period there where I think a lot of men were not really being seen for their efforts. We always got to kind of carry a lot of weight, but not go out and say, hey, we got a lot of stresses, we got a lot of anxieties, we got a lot of our own feelings and things. We've always been, at least, our generation, you have to kind of just bottle that stuff up and deal with it, which is cool. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think nowadays with social media, there's just so much out there. Everyone can portray their lives, but in the way they want to portray it rather than how it actually is, and so there's this pressure on the younger generation to be something more than what they feel they are, and so they get caught up into mimicking rather than just being their own man, you know.
So
And I
they're caught
think,
up in instead of actually going out and doing the
well,
work
they're,
and
like, I don't know about the uh, the Fresh and Fit
mhm.
and the other guy. Anyway, I apologize. I'm not up to all the names of everyone, but They're going to these shows because they're trying to get, good advice, trying to learn stuff. But at the same time, that's a good source. But, the major part of it, and I would assume with these guys on these shows, I don't watch those shows, the podcasts you mentioned, but I would assume those guys got their experience in the real world, just like everyone else does. But you don't need to get that experience by trying to go out there and start dating. Like, I need to do this. I need to wear this. I need to act this way. I got to have a I don't care attitude. I got to do all these things that these guys are telling me, or what I read, or what I saw, this, that, and the other. But what they should just be doing is focusing on becoming their own human being. You can't do that when you're dating and doing all this stuff. You got to accept that you may have a stretch where you just aren't dating anybody. That doesn't bother me. You go out and you travel the world. You want to see Angkor Wat. You want to see the pyramids. You want to do those things. You save up. You work hard, and you get that ticket. You just buy the ticket. Don't worry about planning out your trip. In fact, I'm totally against that. I think you should research the place you're going so you can appreciate the things you're seeing. But get out there and do that. Read books, fiction, nonfiction. Educate yourself. Turn yourself into an autodidact. Become become somebody who's just a sponge for knowledge. And I'm not, you can incorporate watching the red pill community. Is that what it is?
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what I'm saying, and get your information there. But you need to go out and get your own experiences too. But you can't go and like complicate things by also trying to figure, the opposite sex out, and doing all these other things. You just do your own thing, and you become this kind of a your own man. And I promise you, you don't need to jump through a bunch of hoops and fit a certain mold. You've created your own mold of who you are. And I guarantee you, you will just naturally attract people. I mean, you and I have been out in
Countless.
Hollywood places. Every single time we go out, I'm not trying to meet anybody, but every single time somebody comes up, and these are, I think, they're tens and nines, and they're coming up with some, you know, trying to start conversations, but it's just I'm not there for that. But you think the thing is that you just naturally feel good in your own skin because you know who you are, but you can't know who you are just from listening to other people. You got to get out and figure out your things on your own. And you can't really complicate things by worrying. I mean, I don't know, your audience is younger. I'm assuming they're probably younger guys in their 20s or whatever. But don't put all your efforts into trying to figure out how you need to be to score women. Go out there and put your efforts into figuring out who you are, what you want to do, what you want to be. And you may find on that long solitary road that you might be far greater than you could have ever imagined if you didn't get out there and do those experiences. The other thing too is you make a lot of connections. You meet people, you become more worldly. You just start gathering all this knowledge, and it just kind of exudes itself from your being. And people sense that, genuine people sense that. And now you're no longer having to sift through the narcissists and all these people that red pill are like that they know are an issue to they're people you got to deal with, these toxic people. You just naturally know who they are, and you just don't even give a shit to want to even deal with them. But the ones that are genuine people, and they're out there, there's genuine women out there, and they're not all bad. They're just naturally attracted to you. They just sense it. People got, they got a sixth sense. We all, people that really come to genuinely know themselves have the ability to really sense uh, when you're around someone else that's genuine. And so you just naturally exude, you kind of become a magnet to that. And then
Right.
now it's no longer any kind of, you don't have to remember anything or what I got to do or how I got to act. You just you. And you just keep getting good people coming your way. It's like good karma comes back to you just because you know who you are. And we don't know who we are. None of us know who we are until we get out there in the world and we start. Like, if you're interested in one thing, you should go and pursue that. Don't worry about, well, I'm not so sure. If it just crossed your mind for a second, it's something worth checking out.
And
And
it's
and you build on that and you keep building. Like, I'm constantly learning and building. And I'm not just talking about mind and experience. I'm talking about your body too. Everybody should be lifting weights. Everybody should be out doing cardio and stuff like that too. I incorporate everything. everything, because your body is a temple, your mind is a temple, your spirit, whether you're religious, spiritual, whatever you are, it doesn't matter. Everything is who you are. You're a multidimensional human being. And so there is no mold you need to fit. Stop worrying about fitting a mold, red pill, blue pill, black pill, orange pill. Fit your mold. You don't know what your mold is because a mold is something that's created as you go. You see what I'm saying? And it's malleable. So it's constantly morphing as you go through the years.
Yeah,
I
because
write poetry, I do blacksmithing, I travel, I write, I do so many different things. Um, it's just a never ending process. Like I think it was Einstein that said, as a circle of knowledge gets bigger, so does the circumference of darkness around it. You realize the more you know, the more you don't know. So there's always, but you don't know that there's more to learn until you start working your way up that knowledge ladders. You know what I'm saying? And that
right.
goes with experiences and everything else. So you kind of now no longer the red pill, blue pill stuff really now no longer applies to you because you're just who you are. And if you do happen to fit the definition of red pill or whatever it is, okay, cool. But it's not really something that's on your agenda. It's just, okay, it's cool. Because I really don't know the definitions of those things or how it all fits together. But anyway, on the alpha and sigma and beta stuff, the only
Well,
time I ever heard alpha and beta stuff when I was in grad school, it was like a 1938 paper on albino mice. you know, Somehow that's gotten applied into the social structure of humans,
yeah, because
and it's
they've
fine.
taken it, yeah, they've adopted that into this thing because we do have a lot of young guys. We have some older guys too, and I think a lot of men, in particular men, who get into the pills, like they get thrown into these modes, right?
Yeah.
There's normally a catalyst, right? So
Hmm.
all the dudes, including me, that stumbled into that part of the internet, there was a reason they went looking for
I'll tell you
some
what the
some
reason
answers.
probably is. Every
What?
single one of us has been hurt, and it's not, and that's okay to admit that. Doesn't make you weak or beta or none of that stuff. You know, like with Will Smith, I don't follow celebrity stuff, but you can't help to see that it's in my face every time I sign in to check my email. When I saw that guy rage, I saw that's a man that's been deeply, deeply hurt. I don't give it, an S if he's blue or red pill or whatever. I saw a guy that's like got some deep hurt in him. Now, how a man deals with that pain, I think that's where the definition of who he is comes in. You know what I'm saying? So, do you let that pain turn you into a shell of yourself, or do you take that pain and make it a motivator? I see two forces in life, and I don't really like dichotomies, but you have a motivational force that always comes from your past experiences. If you've had a bad experience or you had a L, I watched your show, an L, right? So
Yeah.
if you have a bad experience in your past, that's a motivational force. That's a pushing force that pushes you forward to change your life, right? But there's a second force. And I think of this as desires and our dreams. And that's something that's in the future that pulls us forward. So we have our experiences in the past, it's a motivational push force. And we have desires and dreams of what we want for ourselves and maybe our families and loved ones, whatever it is. And that is a pulling force. So we have two things that can work in our advantage to propel us forward. As men are, this applies to women as well, obviously, just as human beings, because we're social creatures. Um, so I see that Jason doesn't think, it's about being hurt, but I
Yeah,
think that we've all had like these L's in our past. And I think that it's important that we use that to build ourselves up and create ourselves into, stronger individuals that we know how to proceed in life. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, because I would say this when it comes. I ain't gonna lie. For me, it was hurt. But we grew up in the '70s. It was
Well,
always some hurt.
a lot of people like to say they've never been hurt or this or that, and that they never get themselves into a certain situation like Jason's saying. But sometimes you can't avoid but to get yourself into a situation when you're young. A lot of these younger guys that are in their teen years, they don't have the experience to know to avoid certain situations. And so, I'm not saying as adults that we don't know, like I know how to avoid situations for sure. But it took experience to get to that point for me.
Right.
And I would
And
say that's probably the majority. There's always going to be an exception of somebody that just has this omniscient power to avoid bad situations in the first place. But, we build on our experiences. Some of the experiences that we build the most from are the ones that there was an L, as you say,
yeah, and
you
then I
know.
mean, and for brother Jason out there, man, I'm gonna be 100 with you. I don't know. I've never met a guy ever, and especially in the street, especially where we came up, that was just hardcore from jump. Ever, I've never
Yeah.
seen it. In fact,
And I'm not saying Will's red, by the way, either.
no, Will's not. The Will's definitely not red
Will
pill.
is
He's
what is it, blue?
blue. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's
Yeah,
all the way
so Will's
100 blue
definitely
pill.
blue. But my point wasn't about red pill, blue pill. My point was about, you know, even guys that are red pill can recognize a guy that's deeply hurt. You can't fault the guy because he's beta, blue pill, whatever. He just doesn't have the inner strength to propel himself past that bad experience. Like, does Will become more of a shell of himself as time goes on from this experience? We don't know.
Yeah,
Does he
because
maybe he does flip over to be a red pill after this? We don't know. You got to give this guy the benefit of the doubt. He's still
and
got a
even
lot of
if he
life to live.
did, yeah, even if he did come over to the RP side of the world, what type of guy would he be? Like, would he live in that rage and that anger? Right? Would
I'm
he?
sure there's different types of red pill guys. There's probably some red pill guys that were former beta male type, blue types that got hurt, and now they're over exaggerating their red pill side. Now they're really pushing like, yeah, I'm red pill. I don't give an F. Da 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 da. And I just see that as a bunch of walls hiding, their core self. But they haven't changed who they really are. I'm not
Right,
saying all red pill guys are, but I've seen some guys that are pretty out there and they're just, really outwardly confident, but you can see right through it. It's a thin veil hiding the inner person that they haven't actually really changed. They've just changed their outward attitude. But
right.
this goes
Because
back to my point of building you first. Don't worry about getting girls and all that stuff. It just comes. It will
yeah,
happen. And
and
there's a
what's
lot of
fun?
years in our lives for all that stuff to happen, even if it's just 6 months. So who cares? You go out there and you do your thing. Now you've just made yourself that much deeper of a man that women are intrigued by.
Which
They're
is
intrigued. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
which is funny about that though, Rook. Because and here's the thing: a lot of the stuff that you're saying, and you've never even peeked at the RP side of the world. You don't even know what they preach. But a lot of things
Uh,
that you were just saying there is what they preach.
okay.
Build yourself up, become the best version of yourself.
There you go.
The stay in the
So,
gym, get your body up right, get your
absolutely.
mind right, right.
Yep.
Get your
No
money up,
reason. There's no
right.
reason anyone should be out of shape and
Exactly.
feeling insecure. You know
Right.
what? If you feel better too, not just working out, you want to go out, get a good watch, or you want to get a good clothes on. That's totally cool. Do it because it's about you. You shouldn't be doing that stuff because you want to impress a woman. You should be doing that stuff because you know what? I put this on and I feel good. You don't need to explain why you feel good. You just feel good. You want to get some new threads. You want to get a watch. You want to do this. You want to do that. Do it. And don't worry about nothing else. You know what I'm saying?
And that's what I wanted to point out to
Many
everyone
things
too.
you do for yourself.
Yeah, and
You
that's
know,
what I wanted to point
great.
out because they preach that, and the biggest thing they preach is you don't do these things to get women. You do these things,
Okay.
and women come, which is
So
exactly
I'm
what
just
you
being
said when you.
redundant, and so there you go.
But
I'll
what
have
I wanted
to
to see, yeah, because
do
it's so
my
fascinating.
research on these red
Well,
pill
no, no,
guys.
no. I wanted. This is what I wanted. I wanted people to see that you don't have to come from that world to have figured that out. You figured it out just because of your travels in life. And then so like what brother Jason was saying, if Will were red, he never would have got himself into that situation to
I
begin
agree
with.
with Jason 100% there.
And
But
I would
again,
and
that's
I
my
push back a little bit on that. I've known guys who were hardcore red, and then they found that one woman that they thought was everything, and then they fell into the Disney fairy tale.
Yeah,
They
of
walked
course.
away.
Some
Yep.
of them are very manipulative, very conniving. I
Yep.
mean, I've had my share of that. But you know what?
Yes.
In
Yes, sir.
hindsight, I did ignore some red flags.
Yeah, you.
You know,
I was there with you. I mean, I can remember
sometimes you're
shoes.
like,
Remember the shoes
she's
outside the door?
yeah. You know, but sometimes, but you know what? Always trust your gut. If you see a red flag or you feel something's off, trust yourself. You know, you don't need to pursue that. There's a plenty other opportunities out there.
There are. So, and
Okay.
it's one of the things.
Know your value. You know,
And that,
most guys undervalue themselves.
and
And if
Rook,
you're doing that, it's because you don't feel you have value. You could get that by getting out there in the world.
it's funny you said that, Rook. It's real funny because Myron Gaines on the fresh and fit side, Rollo Tomasi and more so Rich Cooper, dude, that's verbatim what they say. Know your value.
Yeah, yeah.
Period. They scream it to the point where Myron has a vein that pops out of his head when
I
he's
agree
going.
with Jason right there. That's exactly what I was saying.
Let's see, Jason. It's not the situation that makes it. I'm sorry, that makes you. It is your reaction to the situation that makes you red or blue. That's what's up. And Jason, you know, he's one of my day ones, man.
You're
Again,
100%
he's like
right.
the red pill is the inner strength. We're
Absolutely.
trying to suspect that you can have it before
I'm
you get hurt.
learning the red pill is pretty much how I live, you know. So, it's good that they're teaching that, you know. Guys need that these days because there's been it's been on social media the past 10 years. It's kind of been anti-male for quite a while, and I think it's really important for these young guys to know, you know, you have value. And it shouldn't actually be a dichotomy of the sexes against each other either. You know, you should be able to get past that point. You may fit all the definitions of red pill, but it doesn't need to come off as you know, some kind of a versus thing. You know what I'm saying?
And it's one of the things that people who are out here listening to this and those who will watch this later. And I want to get into this now because I just told Rook we had a pre-brief and I was like, yo, this is what we're going to talk about. I'm going to jump around a
Yeah,
little
right.
bit. But and I want to jump
Yeah,
to
I'll talk
something.
about whatever you want. We can go to whatever topic you want.
Oh, we gonna go everywhere today, bro. You see, I just can't wait to have this. So, but here's the
I'm happy
thing.
to be here. So.
I want to like your life experience, like what you just said, right? Basically, echoes what they're screaming on that side of the internet because they're trying to get guys to do, first of all, like you said, to understand and value their own self-worth and then how to build themselves up and be the best version of themselves. And
Yeah,
because of that growth and because of that work, you will
yeah,
notice, like you said at the beginning of the show, yes, me and you have gone out in Hollywood, one of the toughest dating markets on planet Earth. And Rook was not lying. I have never in my life, I've known this man over 22 years, I think it is. I've never seen Rook approach a woman. Only dimes approach him, bro. I'm not lying. He said that is God's honest truth. I put that on my daughter. I've never seen the man approach, and I'm talking about he with me doing the Hollywood stuff, the red carpets on Sunset. He watched me doing my thing. I mean, it's been nice when I would just throw him my keys and leave with somebody else.
I remember that.
But
Bastard.
yeah, but listen to what he's saying. He doesn't know anything about that side of the internet. He hasn't read any of the books, right? He's just basing it on his own personal experience. And I wanted to
Yeah.
delve into that a little bit, man. Your
Can I
travel
mention
experience.
on Jason's topic real quick before
Oh
you
yeah,
go
yeah.
to travel?
You go right here. Go right here.
I agree with him, but I think it's important for guys to get that hurt early on because that's an experience that you can't get by avoiding it. You know, I think there needs to be some kind of you know, they may go and learn from these guys, but I mean, I think Jason would agree with this. Uh, it's unavoidable. It's going to happen because you can, you know, I would consider watching these podcasts like book smarts, but you can't have street smarts without getting out there and feeling it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
you
what
got to
end up
get punched in the
happening is
mouth.
you're going to get hurt because you got the book smarts, but you don't have the street smarts. But I agree. I think it's good to try to spread it before, you know, someone, you know, these younger guys get hurt because we don't want them to turn into, you know, angry men later in life because they got hurt or whatever. But
And it's
like
a
Jason
lot of them.
said, it's how you react to it that
It's a
really
lot of them.
determines them. But the thing is that the book smarts they're getting from guys like us online talking about this stuff, you know, so old men, uh, needs to be supplemented with getting out in the real world and getting those experiences. And you're invariably, I mean, again, there may be some guys out there that got some kind of a sixth sense to avoid getting hurt, but invariably somebody along the, you know, someone's going to come along and hurt you. You know, it may not be as bad as for some as for others. There's going to be some experiences, L's, and those are important. I feel, especially early on in a young man's life. I think that don't try. I think trying to avoid is fine and everything, but I find those to be valuable lessons that just add to your dimensionality. You
Yeah,
know,
and it goes back to the way our society has gotten so soft, and you have these parents who they love their kids, they love them so much that they don't want them to.
helicopter parents.
The helicopter parents, the bulldozer parents, they bulldoze all the problems out the way.
Yeah,
As a parent, what I do is I want my kid to go out there and get them knees scuffed up. I want my kids to
yeah,
go out there and try to climb the tree and fall down, and I make them try to climb back up there. That's the
yeah.
kind of parents that we had, right? Like what Rook is saying, you got to feel that pain, right, in order to be able to learn from it
You
and
don't
move
have to,
forward.
but I feel like it's a good experience. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna say you have to because I've come
Okay.
across so many dudes. I've come across those guys that been the book smart guys that's been in a controlled environment in a nice clean gym doing all
Hmm.
this stuff. They get all big and everything, right? Then they come across some scrawny dude like me and they talk crazy and I hit them in the mouth and they break down because they ain't never been punched in the
Yeah,
mouth,
that's a good point. Yeah,
right?
a good point. I like that.
If you ain't never been punched in the mouth, I'm sorry, bro. You ain't ready. You got to get hit in the mouth. First time I
Hey
got hit in
man,
the
I
mouth,
came up in the '80s. I had my share. So
right? And I know this. Yo, one day Rook was about to slam nickels out of me one day just because I was walking down the street and I was big
I
because he
remember
got me
that in
big.
Hollywood. Yeah.
Yeah. But yo, but what we're saying is, and I'm glad for the men and women are out there. This whole red pill, blue pill thing, these boxes, these titles and whatever, it doesn't apply to everybody in the sense that you're not going to be able to put Rook into a box, right? I identify with red pill because I have a message I want to get out there, and
Yeah,
this is
good.
why I bring people on here
Hey,
so y'all
there's
can see
nothing
it.
wrong with fitting the box, as long as you fit the box because you did it on your own. You got the experience and you happen to fit the box, then awesome. You know what I'm saying? But you shouldn't be your goal to fit the box. Your goal should be your own goal.
It
And if
should
you
be your
happen
own
and
goal.
if you happen to fit the box, okay, there's nothing
Then
wrong with that at
then
all.
it is
And I think
right.
if this is what these guys are preaching out there, then I'm all for it for sure.
Yeah, they
But
preach a little bit of everything.
your audience has to understand is I'm not on the internet looking at shit all the time. I'm out in the real world doing stuff. I'm old
Yeah,
school.
Rook
Uh,
makes fire the old way, y'all. He be
so
out there
good.
with rocks and flint and stuff
Hey
making
man,
fire.
you were you out there with Q when we were
No,
doing that?
I missed
Okay.
that. I missed that
I
one.
saw Q on here the other day, by the way.
He might pop on today. Han. What's up, brother? Thanks for coming through. I know the kids today are just finna say we can already climb
I
trees in
only know about
Fortnite.
Fortnite because my nephew played that, like the dancing one.
Yeah,
Is that the game?
hey, bro. I ain't never seen the
And
game. I've
and
heard people
Roblox is the other one.
roadblocks. Yeah, I've heard people
It
talk
was
about it.
funny
So
because she's like Uncle Rook, I need to get some Robux, and I'm like, okay, no problem. And then she's like, yeah, so I can buy some clothes for my avatar, whatever. And I was like, yeah, cool. So I go on there, and they want real money, and I had to explain to her. I was like, I mean, this is so like foreign to me to buy something digital that doesn't, you know what I'm saying? It's like it's digital stuff. I mean, people are getting away from the analog world. You got to have some analog in your system. I don't care how much in the future we are. If you don't have
yeah,
some analog grit, I call it vinegar. You don't have vinegar in your blood, you'll never be a red pill. None of that, whatever. You know what I'm saying? You can't. So I had to have this whole talk with her. I was like, wait a minute. So I need to give you 10 actual dollars to get 10 Robux to buy an outfit that doesn't exist. So I mean, but I can get into things that don't exist if we get into the multiverse and all
oh
that
yeah. Oh,
cosmology.
bro, you know this is gonna be a two-part. I could tell already. So let's talk about your experience and how Rook became Rook. Would you say that a lot of that came from your travels abroad mostly, or was it just your travels here, or how would you
Um,
say you came to these truths?
well, look, it kind of happened because in high school I was the top 100 basketball players in the nation. I was playing with Jason Kidd and all these guys. I think Stackhouse was the other one. It's been so long, another life. So I thought that was my life. I was the guy sitting right in front of the TV watching every NBA game. I thought that would be my world. I had this guy Tasnik, who's the assistant coach for Wake Forest, recruiting me in 10th grade. And so I just thought, I'll go, I'll play a couple years. I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna go on and play in the NBA. I thought that was my world. I didn't put any effort into school. I was failing my Spanish class. I didn't care, but my Spanish teacher, who also happened to be the football coach, he's passed away, rest his soul. Um, he was like, "Hey, Rook, if you don't if you don't pass this class, you don't qualify. You can't play." So he gave me a D. You know what? That really upset me, and I realized what a jerk I was to, because I guess I was a good enough player. I was power forward. I was a good enough player to the point where the school was willing to bend the rules for me, and that didn't make me feel good at all. I felt dirty. I felt insignificant, and I started putting more effort into school because it just wasn't right. In fact, I told him, I was like, "Give me a fail. I'm not going to play," because I felt like I did deserve that. And he gave me a D anyway, and I just remember that whole year playing, and I just didn't feel good every time I was on the court. I mean, there's those moments you get really into the game, you're talking trash, you know. I yanked on this one dude, and I was just like, "Oh, posterized." I don't even know if they use those terms anymore. So you forget about it, but it's always there. And I didn't feel good about myself. So I started really focusing on school and stuff. So I think that was the turning point. Then I had a really bad knee injury. I had surgery on it. It wasn't the ligaments, it was the tendon, the patellar tendon. A long story short, I was offered a red shirt at Wake Forest, but I kind of just was like, this isn't going to work for me anymore. And and I went into after high school. I didn't take a scholarship, nothing. I didn't go to college. I worked as a mechanic. I got a ASC certified. Started working at Unical, and my world. And then I took a job as an electrician, and I was on a job site, and the plumber was there. It was a contract, for track homes. And the guy goes, "Rook," and I look back, and I didn't really recognize him. But he says, "I used to go to all your games." He's all, "What are you doing here?" And he was depressed. He was literally depressed. He says, what are you like? I could not believe I was there. And you know what? It was like all over again. I felt like, what am I doing? I quit, and I didn't know what to do. I never really studied in school, so I didn't feel like I was smart. I didn't feel like I had anything going for me. Now I'm at what, 20 years old. So I decided to start traveling. I need to get out of this. I felt like I couldn't be in LA anymore. I need to get out, and who cares? I just bought a one-way ticket, and I started seeing the rest of the world, how other people live. I've been in Morocco and in India and Jordan, Egypt, Syria. I was in Syria.
So
Uh,
look, people gonna want to know how the hell you gonna go to those places you just named and just I bought a one way ticket and I went to Morocco. Like they don't like
'Cause I
it's
don't,
blowing their
'cause I
mind.
don't,
Like how did
'cause I don't give a fuck. I want to go. I want to go where people are real, and I don't think I'm going to get that in a Western country. Not to knock the West, but the West is kind of, in my eyes, gotten so into this social media fakeness that they're not really living life like they should, 100%. So uh, I was going to these other countries where people were really, you know, living hard lives. And it really put my own life into perspective. I was like, man, I am privileged. I am very privileged. Doesn't matter I lost a scholarship. Didn't matter I was working as a mechanic. I mean, that's still opportunities that they don't have. And I started meeting people and making friends with these people. In those days, we stayed in touch with postcards. We didn't have email and all that stuff. And it really put my life into perspective. Now, I'm not going to get into childhood because I think that's weak sauce to start using childhood as an excuse for who you are as a man.
so you
But I
don't
will
believe in
say
any
is that,
excuses or victimization. You don't believe in that shit.
no, no, you, it's not, but the scars are there, but the scars make you who you are. But if you start using the scars as a crutch or an excuse for your behaviors, then, you're just a bitch. So I think that it's important that when you're out there in the world, you get these perspectives and you start realizing, you know what? I got it really good. I got a lot of opportunities for me. And I started realizing, why am I not learning more? Why am I not uh, trying to infuse myself with all this knowledge in the world that is available to me as an American, you know. And I started networking with people when I'm overseas and doing all these things. And I really started putting my life into a totally different perspective. And it made me really appreciate my life. And by appreciating my life, I was more open to opportunities for learning, for meeting people, business opportunities, you name it, everything. I mean, I've learned everything, stock trading, everything. It doesn't matter what it is. There's no limit to what you could do if you realize that you have that opportunity. And as people growing up here in the West, we have far more opportunities than others. I help out a family in Greece even now, as we speak. Their daughters and doing ice skating and stuff like that because I want to give others opportunities that I have that they wouldn't have otherwise. I'm not enabling anybody. It makes me feel good to do those things. And I wish it was like that for everybody. But you're not going to get that from watching a YouTube video of the Sahara or, you got to get out there and do that stuff.
But what about those people that Brooke that say, "Oh, well, I'm well traveled. All you got to do is look at all my
Here, look,
selfies."
look, so you've been out with me before. What's the first thing women come up to me when they find out I travel? They tell me how many countries they've been to.
Yep.
I'm not going to say how many countries. You know how many countries I've been to, but I never say that because someone from another country come to the U.S. and they may go to L.A. and they may only go to Santa Monica in L.A. and then they go home. They may have been here 2 weeks, but have they been to the USA? No. I mean, how is Santa Monica anything like New Orleans,
Yeah, or Cincinnati.
or the Bronx? You know what I'm saying? Or Yellowstone. Uh, so I don't qualify my travels by the number of countries I've been to. I've been to Greece dozens of times. I've been to Spain several times. I've been to the Canary Islands. I've been all over Africa and Asia. I took a motorcycle from Chennai, and I rode a motorcycle by myself all the way up into to Goa and beyond. Um, and I still don't. I wouldn't say I've been to India, and I was on the ground. You know what I'm saying? Uh, it's the experiences you've had that qualifies, and it's not just the experiences, but did you learn from the experiences? What did you bring home from those experiences? Did you keep those experiences? Are those still with you a year later, 2 years later, 5, 10 years later? And they all build on you, on who you are. So now when you go out in Hollywood, or there's this whole dating scene, it's so trivial, like so trivial to you that it's a moot point to bring up red pill, blue pill at this point. Whether you fit the definition of one or the other, that's fine. But it really doesn't concern you, you know what I'm saying? Because you have so much, you have so much in here, you have so much in here, even more important, because those experiences you've had seeing these people, starving people, I was in Rhodes and I saw the Syrian refugees there in person. I've seen them and they're all over Athens. Um, Afghan refugees. I was in a hotel in Aqaba in southern Jordan, and 7 Afghans, you know, uh, came there that fled from the Taliban. Um, and I know some Dari, so of course I can talk to them a little bit, and and you just learn all these things, and they stay with you. And you know what? All those scars you had getting hurt as a kid, you had an abusive father, whatever, all that crap. Those scars are like nothing compared to all this gold you're lining yourself with, your soul with, you know what I mean? And you become your own entity in this world of definitions, red pill, blue pill, this and that. At what point, if you look at the electromagnetic spectrum, at what point does red become orange? Is it 700 nanometers? Why? It's arbitrary. And if you start seeing things as a continuum instead of dichotomies, or instead of categorization, because as humans, we have to categorize things in order to make sense of them.
Yeah, you
But
just
if
blew
you start
everybody's
looking at
fucking mind
things,
with that, bro.
I'm sorry?
You just blew everybody's mind with that, bro. Though that the real spectrum, like the real color spectrum, like the fact that you
Yeah,
know that, man. 'Cause how many people walk up to you and they just think, oh, this is just some
all the time. People look at me
biker
and they
dude?
say I'm 6'4", 250-pound meathead. They don't give me time of day. I get, people just assume you're an idiot. It doesn't bother me. It says more about them than it does about me. And that's another thing you'll have. You have that perspective where you have a perspective where the things people say to you to knock you down, the haters as they call them. I'm learning these terms, but you got to realize they're saying more about themselves. And once
there
you
is
realize that,
it speaks to
you
their
just,
inadequacies and their
and if
fears.
you have a heart, you just feel bad for them,
Mm,
or you just don't care. Either way, it doesn't slow your day down. You know what I'm saying?
man. So, and listen to y'all, we gonna be all over the place. I told y'all to get y'all pencils and tablets out because I'm jumping around. I don't care. We ain't gonna stop. So y'all just gotta keep up. Toxic masculinity, Rook. Toxic fucking masculinity. What the hell is that, bro?
Toxic masculinity, is that like a macho guy?
It's a term out there. You hear it all the time. Oh my
Oh
God,
no,
he's so
I'm not too
toxic.
familiar with, but I'd say it sounds to me, and I'm just guessing, but I would say toxic masculinity is a beta male perpetrating the front as a red pill guy.
Ooh. And giving everyone a bad name. Kind of like
Hey, look, if it's toxic, there's some blue pill shit in there because only a blue pill guy would get upset and angry and then get overly exerted on his attitude, outward attitude, and and all this stuff in the show that he puts on to hide all that, who he really is on the inside, and that becomes toxic. If you're not 100% who you are, that mold I've been talking about, then you're gonna exude whatever you think you are or want to be, to the point of being obnoxious and toxic. So I'm a guess, because I'm a guess that's what toxic makes. So if I had to define it in a single sentence, I'd say toxic masculinity is a blue pill perpetrating as a red pill guy. What do you think of that?
damn, I think somebody's gonna clip that. That's what I think of that. I think we're gonna see this shit in the internet someday soon. With motherfuckers want to hear that definition. So all right,
No.
man, let's shift it up then because I asked you that for a reason. Motherfuckers talk about toxic masculinity, right? Until the Huns are at the gate. You're a toxic male until somebody kicks the door in, right? And you need somebody to come defend the house. So when I hear this, I'm like, so were the Spartans toxic? Were the Vikings toxic? Right? Like you know what I mean? Like tell me a little bit about Spartan life, bro, because we all know about 300. Everybody I know is always saying, "Hey, where's your one friend? The guy looks like Leonidas."
Well, the Spartans lived a totally different life than the rest of the Greeks. And to be clear, the Greeks didn't think of themselves as Greeks. They associated with the city they were from. These were city states. So you had Athenians, you had Spartans. So they only came together when Persia was knocking on the door. There was an outside threat. But Spartans were pretty unique because they were trained at a very young age for war. They wore red to hide the blood during battle. That's why they had those red capes. Now, as far as being toxic, I would say that kind of society is very toxic, because they're brutal warriors, and they aren't afraid of death at all. In fact, they would invite it, like Vikings. And there's plenty of other, Genghis Khan. The list is very long in history. Uh, but
Yo, that's your
you
favorite scene from the
don't,
movie. Spartans, what's your profession? Haru, haru,
yeah.
haru.
So, hey, and in that movie they got 300, but you know what? There was 9,000 slaves that was part of that battle of defending Thermopylae. There's a lot of other people that were involved in that, but history is written by elitists. So there's a big story there but of course, that was based off a graphic novel. I mean, obviously the Persians didn't have fangs and shit. You know what I'm saying? I remember I was talking to this Persian dude, and he was like, man, that movie's so inaccurate. And I was like, that's based off a comic, right? It's not like
Yeah,
trying to tell real history.
that's like getting mad at Justice League for not being realistic.
Yeah. So, yeah, I see Jason's thing there. So, look, I never really heard the term toxic masculinity. before, but if it's a term someone made up to knock the other side down, it's not my problem. So anyway, but Spartan society, I would say in general, is pretty toxic because you don't get the chance to really cultivate yourself as an individual. They weren't individuals; they were a unit, and that's great for battle and war and all that. But it didn't really serve them well because they're gone now.
Obviously.
You know, what are the cultures that lived for a long time? Were the ones that really cultivated uh, themselves. Look at the Egyptians; they were around for thousands of years.
Speaking of the Egyptians, I was going to jump to that. You were telling me, and I've seen. Okay, here's the thing. Especially as an African American, as a black guy, you know what I'm saying. Whenever I open up history books about Egyptians, they all look white. But then when I looked at hieroglyphics, I would see.
Hieroglyphs. It's not hieroglyphics.
My bad. When I looked at the
Oh,
hieroglyphs,
hieroglyphs.
thanks. Yeah, hey man, Cincinnati Public School right here, bro. So when I look at the
Most
hieroglyphs,
people don't know that. But
you look at
yeah,
the
go ahead.
hieroglyphs and you see that there were different colors when it came to pigment.
Yeah.
So what was up with that?
You'll see Nubians or the Kushites and people from Punt, which I think was the Horn of Africa in modern day Eritrea. You'll see them depicted with black skin, and then you'll see the Egyptians depicted with red skin. But they weren't depicted black skinned as if the Egyptians weren't black also. It was a way of defining them as being different from Egyptian. You see what I'm saying? Look, the 25th dynasty was all black pharaohs out of Nubia.
I didn't know that.
No, they were all of them were, and they tried to reestablish Egypt. And there's a lot of in the academic circles. There's a lot of so look. Let's just get one thing real clear here: is that Napoleon's the one that started Egyptology. It was him that brought all the people over there. That's where it really started. But where's the Nubianology? You know, it's just starting. There's so much that we don't know. Look at Meroe. There's hundreds of pyramids there. How much of Nubian culture influenced Egyptian culture and vice versa? We don't know yet. But if you look at the Nile, was there a line that separated northern Sudan from Egypt back then? No. It was the Nile. So there's obviously going to be integration there. And there was absolutely black Egyptians, and there was brown Egyptians. And they didn't think of, if you were Egyptian, you were Egyptian. And you have to also consider this fact. They didn't think in terms of nations back then. I don't even think they referred to themselves as anything. They were just sons and daughters of Ta or Amun, or Ra, whatever preeminent god. I know, like under Akhenaten, it was Aten. He totally turned Egypt upside down, changed the religion, moved the capital from Thebes, created a whole new city and everything. But the point is that modern scholars, a lot of them are from, European scholars and stuff. They kind of whitewash Egyptian history. And it's not to say all Egyptians were black or all Egyptians were brown. There were black and brown Egyptians. There were no white Egyptians. I know that watching the History Channel, which is a vacuous channel to begin with anyway. But there's a lot of history there, but you're never going to finish Egyptology or the Egyptian history without getting into Nubian history and Puntite history as well. That's African history that's just not been a focus of academia, and it's just starting now, and we're starting to learn a lot of new things, and so it's not just about Egypt, because remember, again, it's not nations back then. Things were kind of a little bit more fuzzy on borders, like I know, like Ramses the Great went down past the fourth cataract to establish Abu Simbel to intimidate the Nubians to keep them from coming up. That's as far south as he went, but the point is that there was always these interactions going, even before the unification of Egypt under Narmer. You had Upper and Lower Egypt. They had separate rulers. They wore different hats. They had a red hat. There was a white hat, depending on if you were in Upper or Lower. Remember, Upper Egypt is the southern part because the Nile flows from the south to the north. In Lower
Wow.
Egypt, so there's all these things. So anyway, the point is that, yeah, absolutely, there was black Egyptians, and every single pharaoh of the 25th dynasty was absolutely black. But I think also that it's important to know that this isn't going to be. You can't just study Egypt to understand Egypt. We have to also study Punt and Nubia, absolutely. And
And,
it's just
and let
not
me
there yet.
ask you this. So Greeks,
So maybe some of the young guys watching this want to get it. That's maybe that's something they want to pursue.
so the Greek role in all this, and with respect to Alexander the Great, how did
Alexander of Macedon.
of Macedon? So
I avoid the great term.
how does that feel? How did that work? I mean, did I mean his influence? They said he pretty much conquered the known world. Is that
He
correct?
did. Yeah, absolutely, he did. But a lot of that was established by his father, Philip II. His father, and a lot of scholars are not. It's actually not scholars. I take that back. A lot of them say that he invented the phalanx, which is like basically the ancient world version of the tank. You had these big 20-foot long sarissas, and he had these groups of guys 16 by 16 in mass marching like tanks, and they took orders perfectly, and they just overrun enemies, plus tactical stuff, all the things you were in military.
Yes.
But Philip didn't invent that. That actually started way back uh, in ancient Mesopotamia. There's actually depictions of phalanx formations and stuff. But Alexander adopted all these things, and his father did a lot to lay the groundwork. So it's not like Alexander just came out of nowhere and just started doing this stuff out of the blue. He was building on stuff, and this kind of goes back to the whole theme of this whole thing: is we build on the shoulders of giants before us. So we build through our lives and keep building and building. You don't want to start from scratch, and that's kind of what Alexander did. He's also a genius tactician. Uh, but yeah, I don't know what else you want to know on Alexander. I mean,
Not
that's a topic
just
I
that.
can go on for like hours, but you
Yeah,
know,
no. Like, and it's just like
King Tut,
brother Mike is saying. This is
got,
gonna be 10 parts.
yeah, we got like King Tut, and all that. I mean,
You wanted to talk
I
about
got
Tut a
a
little
theory
bit.
on that one.
Yeah, you wanted to talk about Tut a little bit.
So I mean, Tut, his, his name was he was born Tutankhaten, but his name would have been Tua Anach Yatai. That's how you would have pronounced his name. So, and when his name was changed to Tutankhamun, which most people know him as, it would be Tua Anak Amama. And but Tut, look, I've seen like History Channel documentaries on Tut, and he's riding a chariot, and he's got the Nemesis on and all this stuff. Uh, every cervical vertebrae in Tut's neck was fused, so he
Why is
couldn't
that?
turn. There's a genetic defect.
Oh, because of all the inbreeding.
Maybe. I don't think his mother was Nefertiti. I think his mother was Kia, a Mitanni princess. But Tut's cervical vertebrae, all the cervical vertebrae were fused. Okay. Also, the the general of the army, I guess you can call him. His name was Horemheb. He actually became pharaoh after two pharaohs after Tut. Horemheb said a very interesting thing, and it's not, Egyptians are very traditional, so they don't say things unless there's some kind of something very meaningful behind it. And Horemheb said a very interesting thing. He said, "I'm the only one that can calm down Tut's tantrums." Now, I know Tut was young when he took power. He was about 10 years old. But remember, Tut was still around when he was 20 years old. He's still having tantrums. So, I've worked my whole life with special needs and autistic people. I think Tut was autistic. And I think that Tut had a club foot as well. Tut had a lot of things going on, you know, and I don't think that he's the pharaoh everyone thinks he was. Uh, I think that his fame comes from the findings at his tomb because it was undisturbed. It was almost disturbed actually, but that the treasures that were found in that tomb were probably pale in comparison to the treasures that would have been found in Ramses II's tomb. But because Tut's tomb is the only one that was untouched, he's the one that sticks out in our mind. The real story is with his mother and his father. Actually, his stepmother, I would say, Nefertiti. So Nefertiti would be called Nefri-Titi. So his father was Akhenaten, which would be Ukhatn. What would it be? It would be Ukhatnayatai, would be how you say Akhenaten. Now, his father changed Egyptian religion to just one god, Aten. And remember, this was polytheistic religion, and his father changed it to effectively a monotheistic religion. But what's really interesting is that not only was it just Aten, the god Aten, the sun, but this god is not portrayed as like an animal head with a human body. It's just the rays of the sun. That's a first. It wasn't anthropomorphized. The other thing is that he said this is the god for all people, not just Egyptians. Now you have to think about that for a second.
Yo, that's fascinating right there, bro. All
Now,
people, not just Egyptians.
right now, the priest class uh, was very upset, especially the priest of the temples of Amun, who was the basically the chief god at the time. Were pretty upset about this because that's their income. I hate to say it, but the priest class of the temples of Amun were suddenly basically out of work. And when Akhenaten moved his temple or moved to the capital from Thebes south, he created a city from scratch called Akhetaten. I mean, this is a real city with 2 suburbs, at least that we know of so far. Not we, but actual scholars. And you know who followed him, other than the priests of Aten, who were like suddenly overjoyed? Um, I think it was a lot of the downtrodden, the overlooked people, the people that not the elitists. They went down there. Now, Akhenaten is, he's often called the heretic pharaoh and all this and that, but he was a humanist first, probably the first truly humanist pharaoh there was, and he really put all his efforts into spirituality, family. There's depictions of him with family. If you look online, Akhenaten with Nefertiti, he's got a pot belly. He's got free flowing looks, on him. If you look at Egyptian art, it's never changed for 3,000 years. That's how rigid the culture was, very conservative culture. But Akhenaten changed the artwork. He changed the religion. He wasn't going out thumping his neighbors, the Canaanites and the Nubians. That was like for Ramses II. That was like his annual tradition to go out and thump on his neighbors and come home. You'll notice too, Egyptians never really garrisoned areas that they conquered,
That's
because
true.
to die off of Egyptian land was to be consigned to oblivion. This probably stemmed from Isis, which is actually East. All female goddesses last or names ended in T. Isis is a Greek corruption. Her name was East. But anyway, when she resurrected, that whole story. Anyway, the point is that to die off of Egyptian land is pretty, you're consigned to oblivion. So they didn't really garrison outside. They'd go and thump on their neighbors, but then they'd come home. It's a risky move to be garrisoned outside of Egyptian land. You know, but
But
here you have.
going back to what you were saying about one God being for the people, fighting the religious hierarchy.
Mhm.
That has a
I
lot
think that
of
was probably one of the
Christian
reasons he
overtones,
had to move the capital. Oh, there's
right,
definitely Christian over. The Hebrews came out of Egypt. Moses is an Egyptian name. Did you
bro,
know that? Yes,
bro.
Egyptian name. Like Tutmos, that's Moses. That's Egyptian. Tutmos, which you would pronounce it Kauhau Misau. That's how you would pronounce that one. How you get
Wow.
Tutmos out of that, I don't know. But Moses is an Egyptian name, 100%.
So
Um,
I mean,
but yeah,
because
of course, there's going to be parallels there
well, people don't
because
notice
these
about you
cultures
though.
are,
You've been published, right?
yeah,
Like you've had
not in
so
this, not in this, but
not in this, but you've been published, so you're no stranger to academia. Like you've talked to folks. This has to. Be, I mean, are you kind of like making waves when you say this stuff? Because obviously you can back it up with some things.
yeah, I don't know. I got my own website where I go way deeper into this stuff. And there's a lot of assumptions. So look, I've seen YouTube channels talking about and it's just these guys who go on Wikipedia, they look a few things up, and they're really good with editing videos. I can't do that. That's why I write. But nobody reads anymore, it seems, because But I mean, look. I don't know if can you pull up King Tut's mask, the gold mask, so people can see it. I'll show you something that blow your mind.
Okay, give me a second. And So I'm gonna pull up King Tut's mask as soon as I. I hit the wrong button. Hey, give me a second, y'all. I'm having technical difficulties. Okay, I had to stop that real quick. Let me pull up Tut's mask. So we're gonna give us a few more minutes, and then we're gonna jump into um some of your crazier exploits. And
Oh
I'm gonna
man.
no, but
Okay.
not we're gonna do some of the crazier stuff you've done. Then we're gonna do a little bit of womanizing stuff, and then we're gonna have to save the rest for the next show. But
Oh, no worries. Yeah.
yeah, because
And
I
whatever you
mean,
want to talk about, man. I can go off on this stuff, so I'm not really prepared. So I'm kind of maybe all over the map. So I apologize to your audience.
I like being all over the map, man. Because right now we blew everybody's mind wide
No,
open.
well, let me
They
just say real quick. King Tut's mask was originally made for Nefertiti. I explain why in my blog, which is online, rookandalus.com. Little plug there. Look for the one on King Tut. But that mask has the face is a different type of gold. King Tut has earrings. If you look at that, if you go on Google right now, everybody's watching this, you'll see earrings on there. Males in the royal males never wore earrings past childhood. So I guess you're gonna pull it up.
yeah, and I'm gonna they'll hear us talking. I'm gonna mute it so we don't I don't get like a strike or whatever. They got these strikes, but I'm gonna go forward, see if I can fast forward and find the mask.
Oh, on a video. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe you can. It's no big deal. I mean, but people can pull it up and they'll look at this. But that mask was originally made for Nefertiti, which suggests something very important here that Nefertiti actually ruled Egypt as full pharaoh, just like Hatshepsut did. But there's a thing called Damatio Memorori, and that's where you go and you basically chisel out evidence that there was a female ruler. There's several female rulers of Egypt. Look at the ears, they're pierced. And if you look really closely, probably not from this one, but along the sides where the neck meets the nemes, which is that headpiece, there's solder joints where they soldered this secondary gold. The gold on that face is not the same gold as the rest of that piece. And if you look at the ears again, pierced, a 20-year-old, which is what Tut was when he passed away, would not have earrings, and they wouldn't depict him as having. I know you can have holes in your ears once you've got your ears pierced. They wouldn't depict him that way. So what you're looking at here is actually a mask that was originally made for another pharaoh. And if you look at the records, there was a pharaoh that came after Akhenaten before Tut. Uh, Nefertiti, I think was the name. That's Nefertiti. Now Nefertiti would have changed her name because that's tradition. Pharaohs, they change their name. They usually have 5 names. But that mask was Nefertiti right there with
Wow.
the tut overlay. And there's a lot of, scholars thought for years that Nefertiti died during a plague. So I think it was the 16th year of Akhenaten's regnal year. I don't remember exactly right now. But her name drops off the record. And so they thought she died from plague. Now there's records from Cyprus. Cyprus back then would have been called Alashia, of royalty dying from a plague. So the plague's well established. 3 of Tut's sisters died from the plague. His grandmother, Tai, who was a powerhouse, I mean, red pill woman right there. They all died from the plague. So when Nefertiti's name disappeared from the record, they thought she probably died from the plague as well, you know. But what was interesting in 2012, they found evidence that Nefertiti was still alive way after the plague. It was an inscription found during Akhenaten's rule and translated from hieroglyphs. It read, "Great royal wife, his beloved, mistress of the 2 lands." The 2 lands would be Upper and Lower Egypt unified. Nefuratan Nefertiti. That's Nefertiti, which means she's still alive. She didn't die from the plague.
Wow. And Jason wants to know how far back you've researched.
I've researched all the way back to the Sumerians and then some. But in terms of Egypt, pre-dynastic Egypt, when pharaohs used to actually go down the Nile, up and down the Nile, to bless the temples before there was a priest class. As Egypt grew, they had to create a priest class to do the job for him. Because remember, the Pharaoh was God on earth. He was the divine representation of the gods. So he was actually seen as a Pharaoh. When you see depictions of leaders leading their army into battle and the leaders actually at the front, other than Genghis Khan and Alexander of Macedon, every single Pharaoh did that. They were literally at the front of the charge because they felt divinely protected. Nothing could happen to them. So, but yeah, I go back way, way back to pre-dynastic Egypt. And when I say sailing down the Nile, you can sail down the Nile. So Egyptians were terrible when it comes to boats. Uh, you know, they're not like the Minoans, who was a thalassocracy. You guys can look that up. Thalassocracy. So, but the Nile flows from south to north, right? So if you're in Lower Egypt, I'm sorry, if you're in Upper Egypt, and you want to go to Lower Egypt up, north, it seems weird. You just float along the Nile. You don't need any kind of sailing skills. When you want to go south, how do you get up the river? You know, well, there's a prevailing north wind that does that. I think it was the Etesian winds created from I think it was a high pressure over Mesopotamia and a low pressure over the Balkans. Anyway, the two meet and you get a north wind. So it was easy sailing down and it was easy floating back up with the river. So they never really learned how, they used to call the Mediterranean the Wajwer. It means the Great Green. And I know the Mediterranean is not green, but you also have to remember they didn't have a concept of blue back then either. That's another weird thing. I'm gonna get way off topic here. I better
But yo,
stop.
that's crazy. And Jason has a question for you, brother. He says exactly when I wanted to hear exactly what I want to hear. So do you think the big
Big
circle was
circle
Atlantis?
Atlantis. No, I don't. I think Atlantis. If it was anything, if I had to guess what Atlantis was, I mean that's kind of one of those things where, look, I don't think myths are completely myths. I think they come from something for sure. You know, um, could Atlantis be out there near Morocco or the Canary Islands, or was it Santorini? I mean, that's a whole nother thing that we can get into. Um, Now, to answer Jason's question, I wouldn't say yes and I wouldn't say no. I think I feel fine just saying that I don't know. And I think that's what's really beautiful about it is that these things are things that we really need to look into. I do believe, I mean, look, the Minoan Society, I think Minoan's a total misnomer, by the way. Minoans were named after Minos. Minos, if anything, would have been Mycenaean. If you look at the myths, uh, Crete wasn't called Crete. It probably was called Cappadar. Crete was probably invaded and taken over by the Mycenaeans around 1450 BCE. And if you actually go through the chronology of all the characters in the myths, Minos comes after that. Okay, so even from a mythological standpoint, to name them Minoans isn't even accurate at all. The Egyptians referred to them as the Keftu. We see them in Hittite records with a K term as well. So maybe they were called the Cappadarians or the Keftu or something, but it definitely wasn't Minoan. But there's a lot of Atlantis stuff that's linked with Minoans because remember, Minoans had plumbing,
They
and
had
we're talking
plumbing.
we're talking, thousands and thousands of years ago. We're going way back, Cycladic cultures, you know, 2000 BC, that kind of stuff. They had plumbing. They had a lot going on. A lot of people think Minoans were like these. I'm gonna just call them Minoans so I don't confuse people, even though I don't agree with that term at all. Made up by Arthur Evans, this guy. But if we look at a lot of people think they're like this peaceful society. Remember, I told you guys to look up that term thalassocracy, THASSOLACY, whatever. Um, it's because there was such a strong naval power at a time when there were no navies. They didn't need to have walls and defensive structures and all this stuff because their defense was at sea. I don't think that they were like this inherently naturally peaceful culture that got along with everyone. They had the benefit of being surrounded by the Wajwer, right? Um, but they were kind of a organized piracy as well. There's a lot of history out there. It's all out there. It's all free. A lot of peer-reviewed papers, unfortunately, you got to buy. I have academic access to get them for free. I have connections for that. But a lot of this stuff's out there, and you just got to dig for it. And
All right,
then
bro. I
first,
gotta tell you
get out
something.
to see these places.
I gotta tell you something, Rook. I'm listening to you, and I know how smart you are, bro. So I gotta tell you, I'm
I'm
a
not
little up.
smart. I just interested.
Right, and I'm upset because I'm hearing all this thing. I believe, and this is just your boy DL saying and his dose of what do you call those tin hat foil dudes. Right, here's my
Okay.
conspiracy theory right here. My man Rook has a time machine and he ain't let me use it because you sound like you've been back there talking to these people, bro.
Hey, man, you know what? As sciencey as my brain is, I feel like I lived a life in those times. When I go to Greece, which is all the time, I go to different places in Greece. I visit these. I went to one site a couple of years ago called Castri. It's an ancient Cycladic site. You got to hike to it. No tourists there. It's not easy to get to, but it is amazing. I got a video of it on my lowly YouTube channel with 42, uh, whatever you call it, people.
Subscribers? No,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
gonna link you on here,
Right.
but that number's gonna grow, bro. We're gonna link you on
I
this
hope so. I
show.
want you to get 1,000. I really do. Um, but anyway, I feel like I'm home. It's a weird thing. So I'm open to what a lot of people call woo-woo stuff and things. Look, when you're out there learning for you and you're focused on you and you find something interesting, don't worry about if it's woo-woo or if it's science or whatever it is. Figure it out. Get out there and learn it, and and involve others in your journey as well. I think that's really important. Um, but don't ever accept an answer as that's it. Always be tentative in your beliefs. Always open to change your mind about something if new information comes in. Because the second that you lock into whatever it is you believe, you become an ideologist. And ideologists are why society is so polarized now. And to become ideologists, or to get ideological, really is the fault of a lack of critical thinking. You know, yeah, I agree. Math is the language of the universe. You want to get into the universe, we could do that.
No,
You want,
that have to be the next show. What we're about to get into now is what you like to do for fun. So I'm gonna go ahead and just break it down to y'all. My man Rook right here, when he wants to unwind and just have a good time, he goes out and chases tornadoes. Man, tell me about storm chasing, brother.
I get paid to do that, so I'm actually leading a tour in June 18th. So yeah, I chase tornadoes, I forecast them, and um, I take tourists out there, and
So
I
break it all the way
situate
down,
them
like
so we can take videos. They take photos of them. I mean, I've caught over 20 tornadoes, um,
he
and
caught him.
I guess that's the term we just say. But yeah, man, I mean, getting out there into the plains, chasing, there's nothing like it in the world. And just to make a point here, real quick, most tornadoes don't hit communities and stuff, and when they do, I don't take my tourists there and say, hey, take pictures. These are people's lives. Um, Thankfully, most tornadoes are out in the middle of nowhere. Those are the ones that I really love seeing. Those when they do hit a community, we go there and help them out. We're not there to take pictures and stuff.
And that's cool because you're a noble brother, man. But let's break it all the way down. Like, okay, so let's take this today is the day we're gonna go storm chasing. It's 06 in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
right? What do? You get up and then what happens?
So I'll wake up and remember that I'm doing this the night before, and I've been doing it all week. Um, Ozzy, yeah. I mean, she's got a fine body, man. Uh, so anyway, I get up. I start looking at the forecast models. I start looking at surface data. I look at SQT charts, everything, and you're looking for all sorts of different factors. You know, you're looking at CAPE, which is convective available potential energy, which you can get from these models. I look at the short-term models. So there's like models like we call it the HRRR. You can look at the NAM model. I mean, that's like kind of more of a mid-range model. But you look at all these different models, and you're looking for CAPE values. You want something called convective inhibition. We call it SIN with a C, because you don't want storms just blowing up. So what the SIN is kind of like an inversion layer of warmer air that prevents convection from just taking off. So what you get now is you get this pressure. Kind of think of it like this. It's not totally accurate, but you get like this pressure building up under this lid. So think of a lid, an invisible lid in the. I'm covering my face. Look at it.
That's fine.
But you get this lid, and it builds pressure and pressure and pressure, and you want these isolated storms, and then boom, they just blow up. I've been under storms that just went from 0 to 60,000 feet top. Now that's in the stratosphere. In fact, that's how the stratosphere gets some of its moisture. Um, and now you're in what's called a supercell. There's three flavors of supercells. You got classical, you got LP and HP. LP means low precip, or like little rain, and then one with a lot of rain. I really, really like the classic supercells. The structures are amazing. When you guys look at, I mean, just Google image or use DuckDuckGo image so you can actually get the image, because Google got all, you know, communist about it. But if you go to DuckDuckGo and do an image search, look up supercells. Now I
Okay.
got tons of pictures like that. I mean, they're absolutely stunning. To see them in person is just a whole nother thing. And look, I know we're all over the place today. I
Yes, and I
apologize.
love it.
But what I'm saying is, like, look at all these experiences that I'm creating for myself. And I'm not just taking the experience, but I'm learning enough where I can lead a tour to do it too, or co-lead a tour, I should say. Bill Reed, who's one of the top, if not the top, storm chaser in the country, is a good friend of mine, and he's actually the guy that got me into this. But I think that storm chasing, traveling the world, learning ancient history, learning cosmology, which we haven't even gotten into yet. The universe, expansion of the universe, the Hubble constant, all these things. All this is out there for us. This is the stuff that we need to get into as men and women. Doesn't matter. And then when you come back home, wherever it is you live, and you come back into your house, you're bigger than the city you're in. You just feel it. You just feel, I'm so big. This place isn't big enough for me. And then when you
So,
go out, people just come, they're just like, they're gonna, like, for me, they judge me right away because I'm big, and they just think I'm a meathead. But the second they open their mind, you see me do this, they start trying to say something, and I just know enough where I can just correct them, kindly, or let them know that I know something about what they're talking about too, because I got the experience behind me. And suddenly now you got a great conversation. They drop their guards. They're not trying to be, someone they're not, and they feel comfortable with you. Because that's the other thing that comes with knowing yourself is people naturally just drop their guards with you. They don't feel like they need to put on a show. Everyone puts on a show at the beginning. Not everyone. There's
well,
not some people
here's
just
a
really
show
don't.
for you right there. You see the screen?
Yeah. So none of these. So yeah, that's called Mamatis. There's a tornado. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if some of these clips are from friends of mine. Uh, but yeah, I don't see a good supercell structure quite yet. Hopefully, you get a good mothership in there. The multi-cell storms, I hate them, because what happens is you get a storm and you get another storm, and they collide, and they rob each other of energy. You want a storm that's isolated all by its lonesome. So that's a supercell right there. See that structure? It's incredible. And I've seen even better than that. These things are just behemoths. And you know what? It really makes you feel small and then special at the same time, you know?
So when
So,
you're out there, bro, you're in a car?
yeah, we have a chase van because I take, tourists that sign up to do the tours. And we position ourselves, but we understand that how these storms move, how they work, you know. So we're always safe about positioning people where they can get. We got pretty close to a tornado in Wyoming a couple of years ago, a really beautiful one. Before it even started, we sat there in the same spot, never moved, and watched it start to finish when it roped out. I've dealt with hail like that before. I got one where it just blew out my windshield.
I saw the
Um,
video.
yeah, um, but yeah, so we get them real safe, and they can just watch the storms, and they just, I'd say we're with Tempest Tours, tempesttours.com. In fact, my tour 7, has one spot left. So if you got, you it's this June. Check it out, Tempest Tours. But anyway, yeah, I mean, we get people out there to see the stuff. What's really interesting is when I'm out there traveling, I get to know the local people too. Most of them never seen a tornado. There's this big assumption that people that live in that part of the country see tornadoes all the time, but you don't. Remember how big this place is. Get out there, it's big. Tornadoes are relatively small, compared to that. So people don't even see supercells out there. So I've had people on tours that actually live in Kansas, and they're like, "This is my first supercell," or this is my first tornado," and they're just like, "Oh, and you know what? I I don't do it for the money. I do it for that. I mean, I do it for the tornadoes too. But you know what? I love seeing people's faces just light up, seeing something they've never seen before, or learning something they've never learned before. I teach online ancient cultures, and I also teach environmental science uh, for the LA Community College District, just as a side gig. I love seeing when people's faces light up. Well, I didn't know that. Or, like, wait, you said this, and they ask questions, but that's getting their mind going. They're starting to think critically. I know, like, you were talking to me the other day about AI and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Those type of
did you want to
big,
jump into that? Did you want to jump into a little
yeah,
AI?
I'll jump into that. But, like, people got this big fear about AI and all this stuff. But, it's if you're not thinking critically, that, yeah, you should be afraid of things that can get smarter than you.
But I'm gonna tell you straight up, brother. My biggest fear about AI is the singularity. Like, okay, when a computer finally,
Technological singularity. It's not just
yes,
one. So technological singularity is not just AI. AI is probably one of the biggest forces driving towards that end. And if what's that guy's name? I think it was Ray Kurzweil, or anyway. These guys know far more than I do. But technological singularity is like a collaboration of sciences, genetic engineering, AI, machine learning, deep learning, neural networks. All these things work together to build on each other. As one gets better, the other one gets better because they bring each other up. AI is probably the spine of it, right? But you start to get to this point where it starts bettering itself without our input.
and
That's
that's what
the
I
belief.
mean.
But that's the belief. If we think about what is AI, we all use it every day. You're doing it and you're conforming to it right now. You're trying to hit
Yes,
your numbers. That's
yes.
because you're trying to conform to an algorithm that to
That
you know
YouTube uses.
yeah.
Yes,
Every time we use Spotify and we like a song, we dislike a song, we're feeding an algo. Everything we do. AI is nothing without big data. Now, where is think of big data. So where is it coming from? It's coming from us, especially with social media is the greatest thing. It's rejuvenated AI. AI started in 1956 at Dartmouth College at a conference. In fact, that's where the term was coined. But they call it an AI winter. It had a couple of them where everyone thought computers are going to get smarter than the human brain in a matter of 10 years. It didn't happen. It's more than just math. There's more to it than that. But the problem they ran into was there wasn't enough food for the AI. There's more than enough food now with social media. People are freely putting all kinds of stuff out there. Look, I worked on a I don't want to get too into it, but I worked on a DARPA contract years and years ago, like 10 years ago, 9 years ago, where I went to Crystal City in DC. I gave a talk on the thing I was doing. And the guy before me was talking about algos that I keep saying that algos is algorithms. I'm sure they probably already know
yeah.
that. But they were talking about these crawlers that go through, they look at your social media, they look at your face, they look at your comments. So let's say you have a picture of yourself with a dog. These things will go in there, they'll say, here's Joe, and here's the dog. They'll go through the comments. Now they know all your friends. One of your friends might say, oh, Pookie looks so cute. Now they know the dog's name. Oh, is that at Stanfield Park? Now they know where you were at. I mean, these things build and build and build. This is big data, and we're feeding big data every day. When you go to the grocery store and you enter your phone number, you get that little $20 off, whatever it is. You just told them what you buy, when you buy, and how much you buy. Okay. When you do Spotify, you're telling them your likes and songs and everything. When you're on a dating site, same thing. Social media, same thing. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. We're feeding AI every day. But here's the thing: AI never stops. It is constantly learning and learning and learning. My worry isn't AI. My worry is the inverse relationship between AI's intelligence and society's dependence on that to the point where they're no longer learning. So I can give an analogy here as an old man. I learned to drive on a stick shift. It was three in the tree, you know, an old 1950 Chevy panel truck. And, but, let's say like with autopilot, it's just automatic transmissions. People forgot how to drive stick. Cars start going fully automatic and this, that. How long before people forget how to drive? There's a lot of doctors out there I'm going to talk to about certain specific things where, I did my research and I went and they're depending on the computer algorithms to tell them based on the symptoms, this is what it could be. Now, they, not to knock them, they went through med school and everything, but how much of that are they retaining? If you go back in ancient history, one of the things I think what Socrates was really worried about was when writing came to Greece. So history starts for each culture differently. History starts when writing starts, so it's different. So history for, in India started way before it did for Greece, right? But Socrates was worried. He says, look, like Homer. I don't think Homer exists. I think Homer was just a bunch of these guys that were telling these epic stories from the Greek Dark Ages. They memorized those things, and they were able to memorize them because, they use meter like iambic meter or trochaic meter. All these things where you use the syllables, so it's kind of like they sing these songs of the Iliad, of the Odyssey, and all this. When writing came along, Socrates was like, well, now you write it down. People are going to feign knowledge. They're going to fake knowledge. Now we got the Google and stuff. People are online claiming they know all this stuff, but it's because they got a second window open and they're looking at it, which is fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you're not retaining it, you're not really trying to learn and critically think about it. Now we enter AI. AI never stops. It's always learning, always growing, always going. And what are most people doing? At least in the US, from what I've seen, they're flipping through TikToks for an hour, 2 hours. They're going
6 hours on Pornhub.
Whatever it is, but they're not learning anything. So now you start depending on AI to make your decisions for you. AI is designed to make predictions. I think AI is, a good thing in a lot of ways. But if it comes with the inverse relationship where smarter AI gets, the more dependent you get, and then the dumber society gets, that's where problems come in, because now people in the know can use AI to their advantage, take advantage of you. If you can't critically think, that's the bigger issue, So,
So
but
here's my thing,
I
Rook.
don't singularity is just a combination of a lot of things that's driven by AI. But we can grow with it. Think about this. So everyone's probably, or most people probably heard of Moore's law. That's where I guess you could say like the density of transistors on a silicon chip doubles every about 2 years, whatever it was. It's not going to last forever. I think if it hasn't ended already, it will in the next 5 years. But we started with like 10 micrometers. Now we're down to 2 nanometers. Now, just to give perspective to that, that is like the human DNA strand is 2.5 nanometers. So it's smaller than a DNA strand. That's pretty incredible. And these things use electricity, which travels at the speed of light. It's really not the speed of light. It's about the speed of causality. It has nothing to do with light. That's another topic. And then you got the human brain. Now, the human brain, the synapses, it's way slower, orders of magnitude slower on transmitting information. Whereas you got these AI computers can do it at the speed of light. I'll just call it that. I call it speed of causality. But the human brain is like what, 247 miles per hour? I mean, that's like a snail's pace by comparison to 300 million meters per second. But here's the interesting thing: a lot of people don't give yourselves credit for what's in your noggin. There's a thing called algebraic topology, and it's a mathematical technique to map the brain. And when they were mapping the brain, they found out that the brain isn't in 4 dimensions. That's x, y, z plus time. The brain can operate in 7 to 11 dimensions. Now, 11 dimensions, I don't know if this means anything, just happens to be what works in superstring theory. But when you're looking at the brain in this algebraic topology, and it can create structures in 11 dimensions. Now, they call these cliques, these structures. These cliques can temporarily form and rewire themselves if need be. And it's not just the connections that count in the brain. They found that also, mathematically anyway, that the spaces between these connections also has a function. Now, how weird is that? Now, I find that fascinating because I know a little something about vacuum energy in space, but I don't want to go there. But the thing is that our brains work in these multiple dimensions, create structures at will, rewire at will, take away, add, but that doesn't happen unless you're always learning. And I think that's far more superior than any AI could ever be. AI may be faster, but
Oh,
AI doesn't
okay.
have experiences that we have. I've seen AI try to create art and all this stuff, and art's really subjective. So a piece may look cool or whatever, but where's the emotion and where's the experience behind the artist that made it? But our brains are multidimensional structures where even the spaces between the connections have a function topologically. I mean,
And see, that's
that's
what
really
that,
profound to think about that.
that's what I was going to get to, Rook. So,
I think
and it's
we
funny.
are the way of the universe to know itself.
But what's funny to me is because I'm like, okay, I'm writing notes. I got my pushbacks.
Oh,
But you answered everything I was gonna bring up. My biggest fear with AI was this:
yeah,
that the AI gets so smart, so fast that it makes a decision. Right? It's zeros and ones. In my mind, I'm like, well, it's just zeros and ones. At the end of the day, it's a super computer. So I'm like, oh, it's zeros and ones. It decides that humanity needs to go and then we're gone, or it decides that we're going to make humans infinite, right? So now you're getting into, and I think it was Brother Mike who was asking about transhumanism. You
where you
start,
upload your mind into a system. Look, that floats your boat. No, there's nothing wrong with that. Now you have immortality.
so
I
would
don't know
AI
if
be
like some
behind
of
that?
these futurists have heard of a matryoshka brain.
Say that again. I,
Probably,
I cut you off. Say that again.
oh, I'm sorry, a matryoshka brain. So if you get into like a Kardashev civilization, like there's a Kardashev scale of civilizations that are able, it's based off how much energy we can draw out.
Master.
So I'm sure everyone's heard of a Dyson sphere that surrounds a star, draws all the energy from the star. So we have like this G-type star, sun. A Matryoshka brain is like this layer computer that you have a first layer that absorbs the energy from the star, makes computations. Then there's another layer because remember, look, energy is a weird thing. I'm not really sure what it is. We don't really know what energy is. We just know what energy does. You know, is it nuclear energy? Isn't a type of energy. It's just what energy does. It's nuclear in this situation. It's chemical here. It's magnetic there. So we know energy by what it does, but not by what it is. So one of the things though is every time you convert what energy does to something else. So let's say you take nuclear energy and you convert it to mechanical energy to turn a turbine, and then that converts to electricity. Each time you do that, you lose some of it to heat. It's the second law of thermodynamics. So a Matryoshka brain would would lose some to heat, but then there's another layer outside of it. Now, a Matryoshka brain is around the sun, let's say, like a Dyson sphere, but it doesn't just collect the energy, it runs computations. There's another layer outside to capture that heat loss and uses that heat energy to do computations. And then there's another layer. So you have this cabbage thing that's the size of the universe or the solar system, sorry, and all that's going into computations. Now that still isn't enough to do some of the crazier things in science fiction. But if like in transhumanism, you can upload into that kind of system, you can outlast white dwarfs. Uh, you can Google how long does a white dwarf last if you want, but the thing is you kind of have immortality now. And even if so the universe is expanding. There's a thing called the Hubble tension. The universe is expanding, but it's the rate of expansion seems to be accelerating. It's a really weird thing. It's probably a whole nother topic. We don't have time for it today.
Yeah, you right about that. That's
But
that's
the
two
thing
shows from
is
now.
that even if the universe were to expand to a big rip, by that I mean like it just keeps expanding and expanding, and to the point where everything gets torn apart down to the corks. You know, the corks are held together by a thing called the color force. Like the more you try to pull them apart, the harder it gets. It's like a rubber band that does not break. You know, but even that would be split apart. But if you're uploaded into a system, you don't know any of this stuff. As long as you can feed your energy off of a black hole, or if you have a way to feed your energy off of something else, some other energy source, you can theoretically go for trillions of years. But here's the
Wow.
thing, though: living that long, you have to start thinking of philosophical concepts. Does life get boring? How many experiences can you have before you've had what you think are all the experiences? You know, there's a lot of other things that come into play that I think a lot of people overlook.
And
You
that's
know, I
been
think
tackled by the writers of Star Trek Next Generation when they talk about the Q, the continuum. Like they've been around forever and now they're just bored. Like what do
like
you do?
Achilles in the Iliad said something. I don't. I'm just paraphrasing, but it was something along the lines of, the gods envy us. They envy us because we're mortal, because any day could be our last. And so every day we live is that much more beautiful because of that. The gods are immortal. Their immortality prevents them from having that kind of uh, tragic beauty. You know, I think some of the most beautiful things are the tragic stuff because there's so much depth there. You know, but anyway, that's kind of
Yo, bro, yeah, you got me. I'm sitting here like, yo, you just blew my mind there. So okay, all right. And normally I read as many chats as I can, but as y'all can see, I'm gonna show all the chats, but I'm not gonna read them all because I'm digging this conversation, y'all, for real. Yeah, I told y'all,
looking
Uncle
at
Saint. Yeah, I'm a
Jason getting his PhD tonight. Do it.
yeah, I
Yeah,
love that
man.
because I'm a philosopher, I'm a warrior, I'm a hood dude. You know what I mean? I'm all that, and I love these conversations, man. And that's why I put this platform together. So here's the thing: we covered a whole bunch of stuff, and we really didn't cover anything. That's how much we could be covering. So let's end with this, brother.
Okay.
Let's end with womanizing.
My
You know what I'm
dad.
saying? Yeah, game. Well, as much of it as we can share. Now, we don't want to get nobody in trouble.
What do you like? What do you mean? What are you asking exactly? Like,
So we're going full circle. Like we started about talking about alpha and sigmas, and we're talking about people getting hurt, and we're talking about the people in the red pill community, the young brothers out there normally, and some of the older guys. They really just want to know how to get and to retain a woman in their life. And a lot of this is like, building yourself up. Everything we said, you build yourself up not just because you're trying to chase women, but you build yourself up, you get your money right, you get your mind right, and women will come. So and I got, like we shared early in the show, I co-signed with you because I've never seen you approach a woman ever. Now I have chased down every kind of woman you can think of on at least 6 continents. I have literally chased them down. Hey, come here, what's up? Oh yeah, mommy, all that stuff. You know what I mean? So you know what I mean? Like in Korea,
well,
Chogyo,
nothing wrong,
Chogyo.
nothing wrong with that.
No, there's nothing wrong with it. But what would you say to a young guy who was at that crossroads and he's like, man, I really want to know how to, I've been friend zoned, I'm not getting any sexual access, which on this platform we call Foxy Brown. Like I'm doing all the
hmm
things you're supposed to do. I'm telling her she's beautiful. You know what I mean?
I mean,
I'm going to the dinners.
yeah.
What would you say to someone like
I
that,
mean,
bro?
look, in those younger years, I mean, I'm going to say something. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but it's kind of funny when you think about it. You know, you're all hot to trot or whatever the terms are. I know that's way antiquated. But when you're a young guy, you're trying to hook up with a girl, but you got friend zoned. I got friend zoned once in high school by this Bolivian chick, and I was just like, man, that's the worst. Uh, but you know what? You're young and all this stuff, but go home and masturbate. Because what happens when you're done? Think about that. I'm not trying to be funny.
Clear
When
mind.
no, not just that, but what's the first thing you're thinking about? You want to cuddle? You want to hang out? Hell no. If you don't want to go to sleep, you want to go do something. But now the thought's out of your head, right? I'm just saying, when you're young, don't get all tied up into that stuff where it's got to be some kind of hard hustle thing. Go out there and become your own man, and it'll come to you. And you don't have to hustle and worry about all that stuff. You can if you want to. There's nothing wrong with that. But now you're coming with a lot deeper game than you ever did before, and you come with enough experience. Like I think it was Jason that said earlier, where you avoid those kinds of situations. You never get in that situation to begin with. But you're not going to get that if you're not getting out into the world. If you got to go home and pull out the lotion and knock it out, as a 17-year-old little kid or whatever, do it, because as soon as you're done, the last thing you're thinking about is trying to hang out. Because what happens when you're with somebody and you're done? Now you're there.
Well, a lot of people
I
don't
don't
know.
know. Most guys want to just, at that age, they want to get out and do something or go and turn over or go to sleep, whatever it is. But now they got that out of their mind and they can go and focus on other things. It doesn't have to be about, there's nothing wrong with that kind of stuff at that age, but they should be really focusing on the other stuff, because that way, when they get into their 20s, there's some meat in that game, and there's some vinegar there, so there's something there, some grit, some sand, you know, and now it's not so hard, you know. Things just kind of happen. Doesn't mean you can't go out and womanize or whatever it is, but really, if you're out there kind of womanizing and stuff, that says more about you than it says about anything else. It doesn't really, in my opinion, my humble opinion, I could be wrong. It doesn't really say much about you to go out there and do that stuff. Where it's quantity. You keep going out, you hit up 100 women, you're bound to get one. Really, what does that say about you, though? You know what I'm saying? Maybe you can actually go out there and hit the target on the first shot. Now you're a better gun. Not
You're a
to
better
want
guy.
to,
Because
but
here's the thing, and I'll tell you where that comes from, Rook. When you do the numbers, the average guy, the average 18-year-old man, right? Shit, the guy from 18 into, I want to say the 35,
yeah,
they're having like zero or very very limited, Foxy Brown. They're getting very very limited sexual access, and these guys are just like, they're looking at you like, come on, bro. You know what I'm saying? You know about, you got a time machine. You've been to fucking Egypt. You talked to King Tut. You chased fucking tornadoes. You know what I'm
hey,
saying? You're six
let
four
me just
rip.
say something real humble and straight up. 100, as you say. I've gone a whole year without having sex because I was more focused on other aspects of my life. I'm not saying that's something everyone can do, but it's something I can do. And if I want sex anytime during that year, I could easily get it if I wanted to, if I focus and want to play the game and all that crap. It's not my thing, you know. So you also got to look at it this way. It's not, you don't, it shouldn't be your goal to try to be getting laid every week or whatever. If that's your thing, knock yourself out. But you're not really growing from that kind of experience, those kinds of experience. Maybe a little bit, but you got to accept that you're not an incel because you went a few months without getting something. Yeah, like Michael says, sexual discipline. It's your discipline is in you. You know, don't define yourself by your sexual exploits. I mean, you know me well enough that I probably have the sexual exploits that probably blow some people's minds.
I tell y'all what, if y'all go to, we're gonna pin his page, his YouTube channel. If he gets 1,000 subs,
Um,
you got to
I don't
tell
care
one
about that,
story.
man.
If you get 1,000 subs, will you tell the zip story?
Oh man, no way. Maybe a million subs, so I'm getting paid at least. Yeah, I can't go there, man. Maybe one day. Maybe one day. That's too much right now.
All
But
right.
my point is that I didn't seek any of all this stuff out. It just kind of happens because you're just so confident in who you are. You feel good, and confidence isn't arrogance. It's just you just feel very comfortable in your own skin. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of these guys that are coming to red pill channels are what do you call them? Oh man, podcasts
There you go, Parker.
is is that they're just anyway. I don't want to go too much into it because I'm not really familiar with that whole scene, but it's just important. I'm just going to leave it at this because I think we're running out of time. I think it's really important for guys to and girls too to just focus on creating a mold of themselves that they can be proud of. You know what I'm saying? And then when they go out into the world, they're just so much bigger than their surroundings, and it just exudes itself. Like you just carry a presence when you walk into a room, when you walk into a club, or you walk into a bar, or wherever it is you're walking into. You just have this kind of like, there's something. You're gonna get that initial just judgment thing because that's just how people are. But invariably, the true you is going to come out at some point where it's going to catch people's eye, and and not just getting girls. You're going to make connections with people. Like, wait a minute, I want to work with this guy. It could be business ventures. It could be who knows what. You have no idea, but the opportunities are really starting to come, and you're not even hustling because you spent all your hustle on yourself, building who you were. Not saying don't go out and hustle. Absolutely, you should be out there hustling. But you should be hustling for you too, as a human being. You know, build yourself up because now you just added dimensions to that game. If that makes any sense.
Man, that's what's up, man. And the very last thing, because you're right, we got 10 minutes. The very last thing, bro. I'm
Mm-hmm.
always railing on the 1% when it's talking about our society and how it's structured and who has the wealth and who doesn't have the wealth.
Oh yeah.
And I wanted to say this. I was just kind of looking at some stuff online last night, and this blew my mind to the point where I don't think that people can really grasp the amount of wealth that some people have
Yeah.
in this world. So I came across the stat that at some point, I think it was in 2020, Elon Musk was making $18 million an hour based on, because everything, of course, his wealth is based on what Tesla stock does and other whatever. But it was for 1 year, for a 12-month period, and I want to say it was 2020. He was making $18 million per hour. So when people throw these numbers around, bro, when people say, they're worth this many billion, that many billion, do you think the individuals really understand those numbers?
Nobody understands those kind of numbers. We have no way to gauge what that means. You know, uh, when you get into numbers like that, and those numbers come up a lot in cosmology all the time, people really don't have any idea what that means. Now, I'm not going to name names, but I've tutored the children of some of the elites here in LA over the years, and I've tutored multimillionaires in Bel Air, and I've tutored multi-billionaires in Brentwood. And there's a very big difference between a multimillionaire and a multi-billionaire, but there's also a similarity between them, other than the fact that their families are both very much like everyone else's. They're a little detached from realities of day-to-day life, the street life for sure, but they don't see themselves as being wealthy, which was very interesting to me. They also don't understand how much money they have either, because we don't have any concept of large numbers like that. You know, if I tell you, the next million seconds, I'm gonna go do something. How long is that until we put it into something that's more meaningful in terms of experience, or a billion seconds? That's a huge difference between a million seconds. Do it. Go on Google right now. Put in 1 million seconds in hours or days, whatever, and then do a billion seconds. It starts to give you an idea of just how big these numbers are. Now, when I was tutoring this one person's uh, daughter, uh, he's a multi-billionaire guy here in LA. Um, he had no concept of how much money he had whatsoever. He just kind of, you know, his world was structured around that, but he really didn't understand it, and it was really obvious. And the same with the multimillionaire who has no concept of how poor he is compared to the multi-billionaire, but he also doesn't think of himself as rich. This individual, I remember when I first met him, and actually got to house sit when I got to stay in a mansion in Bel Air for 2 weeks while they were on their yacht in the Greek islands on Mykonos. Um, but I remember him just kind of just talking to me, like, just basically like, hey, I'm sorry, you can use any room you want. I'm sorry, this place is a mess. And look, once you start getting into these upper echelons, unless you're like on YouTube or whatever, there we go. Um, Once you start getting on there, and people are like flaunting their monies, like some of these guys do. But the people that really are investing and building their wealth, they still really don't understand these numbers. you know, and it's not just wealth. It goes into distances and cosmology, years. What does a million years mean? We don't have any concept of that. We only live the human lifespan, which is different from life expectancy. Those are two different concepts completely. Based on the longest living person is about 123 years. So we can assume fairly well that that's what the human lifespan is. So let's just say all of us live 100 years. So we don't have a concept of anything greater than that. What does 200 years mean? What does a million years? You want to be transhuman and get uploaded into the system. What is a trillion years? We have zero concept of that. So when we throw these kind of numbers around, whether it's wealth or distance or time or any of these other things, we really just kind of talking out of our ass because we really don't understand it. We don't. Not that that's wrong, but it's something to be aware of.
Yo, yo, Rook, bro. I gotta get my
Yeah, time.
soundboard fixed. That's Don. It's not. It's just that's Don DeMarco stuff right there, man. Don DeMarco is a term they use in like a fresh and fit a lot in a lot of in the hip hop world. When someone
Okay.
does something that's just like mind blowing, it came from the rap world, like rap battles. When someone would
Yeah,
say something just blow your mind, the DJ would play this sound bite. It's like Don DeMarco, Marco. It's like it's just a thing. And I'm gonna
yeah.
have it next time we talk. And look, there it is. It's yo,
Well, that
bro.
2 hours went pretty quick. I hope it
When
went quick for everyone else.
yeah, and look at that right there.
So,
Mike is saying like Don DeMarco on
Don
that, bro.
DeMargo,
And
yeah.
this and listen,
Thanks,
y'all.
Mike. I appreciate. I hope intense is a good thing.
Bro. Here's the thing, everyone out there.
Meet for
I,
drinks. Yeah, I'm down for that.
I want to have fun on this platform. I want to have some serious conversations. I want to have some dumb conversations. I want to bring people like Rook on here, and then I'm gonna find a pimp. I'm gonna bring
I
a
got
pimp
some
on here one day.
fun travel stories that can get pretty dumb.
Oh, we're gonna definitely get into that, bro. The story about the young couple. Were you in Morocco
Oh,
or
that
Egypt?
was in Tangier. Yeah,
In Tangier,
where the
yeah,
guy
that,
pulled a knife on him.
right. It is
Yeah.
so
I
funny.
can talk about all that another time.
We'll do that. Well, next time. So for everyone out there who's watching, thank you so much for hanging in there with us.
Thank you.
We were all over the place, I know, but this is how we want to roll.
All right.
Have fun with it. And it was someone who joined the chat that I hadn't seen before. Anarchy 88. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. Normally I would have said something right then, but I love to keep, and there it is again, Don DeMarco. I love to keep it rolling when I'm talking to Rook. It's free flowing. You never know. We didn't get to talk
Yeah,
about,
Anarchy.
we didn't get to talk about the beginning of the universe. We didn't get to talk about how we think the universe may end. We touched on it just a little bit.
We
One
could do that.
possibility. We
Whatever
didn't
you
get to,
like.
yeah, like we didn't get to talk about any of the good stuff that we normally talk about on a regular. So we're definitely we got to bring you back, Rook. We definitely got to bring you back.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm down for that for sure.
Much love to everyone out there who helped us out. Next time I'll get Rook to actually sit down and I'll get him some tequila or something, and maybe he'll share a story or two. We got plenty. Maybe we'll talk about some poker. Maybe we can
I
talk
gotta be
about playing some
careful.
poker.
I got some dangerous stories.
Yeah, maybe we could talk about playing some poker, Rook. Maybe we can start.
Okay, you know, with my poker face.
Bro, yo, and listen, if Rook shares any of these stories with y'all, you're not gonna believe me, first of all, and then secondly, you're like, well, you know what? He catches tornadoes, so he probably did do it. Yo, the man is
Never
amazing.
say too much about yourself. Keep that aura of mystique going. That's another thing I'd probably recommend to these young guys.
Yeah, notice I'm the one saying everything, right? I'm the one saying it. He ain't saying. He won't even open his mouth about it. But just rest assured, we got some great stories. Thank you so much for being one of my closest homeboys, bro.
Everybody for hanging, and hope it was a good show.
Yeah, we hope you guys enjoyed that. Next time we'll do a show on just working out. Y'all don't know, but Rook's he's a beast, bro. Like he had Uncle Saint big. So we'll do a show and we'll talk about working out. We'll talk about work ethic, and then we'll talk about the importance of being well traveled. That'll be the next show. We'll just stick to those 3 topics, and we'll just hit it. We'll hit it hard like that, and then we'll do some more shows when we get into, if I could talk Rook into some womanizing tips and stuff like that, which is what y'all young boys really want to know.
I gotta be careful with those, man.
We'll see. Doesn't look like it's gonna happen, but I'm gonna keep trying. I'm gonna keep trying. And then for the young women out there who like to come in, like the women who support this platform, we got stuff for y'all too. I mean, Rook is very aware of different cultures.
I think everything today applies to women as well, for sure.
Okay.
I think it's just a human thing, right?
It's just a human thing. And so yeah, man. Again, thanks again. Thank y'all for checking this out, man. I'm DL Saint. That's my man Rook. This is the DL Saint I Really Want to Know podcast. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.
Peace.